Hello my lovelies, and thank you so much for joining me. Please ignore my hair today. I don't know what I was trying to achieve, but anyway, I was thinking about a challenging word for today, and the word is karakatiță. 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 Well done guys, you just said octopus. So let's carry on with today's video. Oh my god guys, I'm going to talk today about Johnny Depp again. And wow, so many things have happened. But before we get started with today's video, just a quick disclaimer. I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone I talk about in the video. This is for educational purposes only. And all the information that I'm giving you is already found in the public domain, and also I will be sharing with you my opinions. Oh my god, this lipstick makes my lips stick together, like literally. Oh, okay, so I know that I am a bit late. I was really trying to catch up on the last day of the trial from last week, from Thursday, and also on the other days, including today. Well, not today because the trial is live as we speak, so including yesterday, and I was also quite busy with some other things that I had to do, so I had an appointment almost every single day of this week, so it was kind of really hard for me to follow the trial, but I managed to kind of catch up on it. So I want to go through with everything that I have in today's video. And I'm going to start with what was more or less mentioned on Thursday last week. So just a couple of pointers here and highlights of the trial really. So one of the witnesses that was called last week on the stand was Johnny Depp's bodyguard, Malcolm Connolly. Oh my god guys, if you haven't seen this, TikTok is full of these memes and is full of these clips because it's just quite honestly embarrassing, if I'm honest with you. So cross-examination of Malcolm Connolly, yeah, the bodyguard of Johnny Depp. He was cross-examined by Amber's team, I think he was by Rottenborn. And this particular instance was about, get ready, Johnny Depp urinating in the foyer, and he allegedly, the bodyguard, according to Amber's lawyers, saw Johnny's penis, his intimate area. To which of course the bodyguard said no, absolutely not, he didn't really see any kind of, you know, area of Johnny, and he even pointed out that if he would have seen it, he would have remembered it. So I honestly do not have any idea whatsoever where this came from. I honestly have no clue.
Was there anyone from the resident security team in the house when you arrived on March 8th, 2015?
No.
Okay. And the resident security team, is it your understanding that they were there? That they were kind of guarding the house?
They would have been in the grounds, but the substantial grounds, real substantial grounds. They would have been at the grounds somewhere.
But they didn't go into the house on March 8th, correct?
I don't know. I never seen them in the house.
Okay. And so when you arrived at the house and went in, was it just Mr. Depp and Amber Heard?
Just Mr. Depp and Amber Heard.
Okay. And
There
before
may be someone else there. I never visibly seen anyone else. I wasn't there long enough to chat to anybody.
And when you arrived at the house, you could hear a ruckus, correct?
Yes. Well, yes, I could hear. No, yeah, I could hear. Definitely hear something through the door. Yeah.
But you said the door was so thick you couldn't hear the actual words that were being said. Is that right?
No, just a shouting.
And then you went in the house and saw Mr. Depp in the foyer, correct?
Yes, correct.
And Mr. Depp was trying to urinate in the foyer, wasn't he?
No.
Mr. Depp had his penis out of his
Objection.
pants, didn't he?
I think I would remember
Relevance.
seeing Mr. Depp's penis.
I'll allow it. Next question.
And you were trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
Correct, I was trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house, yes.
And Mr. Depp was refusing to leave the house, was he not?
Not so much refused. He just wanted 2 minutes to say his piece.
You took Mr. Depp's arm to try to move him out, but he broke away. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, so he was strong enough to break away from your grip, correct?
No.
So you had his arm and he broke away, though, correct?
No.
Isn't that what you just said?
No. I let him go.
You let go. Yes, but it wasn't
Yes,
easy.
of course.
It wasn't
I'm not
easy.
going to drag him by it.
So Mr. Depp's your boss. You'll do what Mr. Depp wants, correct?
No.
It's not easy to get Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
It's not easy.
Now going back to Amber and some other things that happened, in a shocking twist, quite honestly, right before Amber Heard was due to take the stand, she fired her PR team because of the bad headlines about her in the media. Which, quite honestly, when I read the first headline of Amber firing her PR firm, the first thought that came into my mind was, wouldn't this imply that she indeed follows the news about the trial, about what is being said about herself, which I believe, as far as I know, that you are not supposed to be doing when you are part of the trial and when you will be on the stand as a witness? I'm not quite sure, and also I'm thinking, didn't anyone raise this issue? Because from my point of view, when I read the headline, that was exactly my first impression, that she is looking up articles to see how her image is portrayed after Johnny Depp being on the stand, and she was actually quite bothered by all the negative press against her because of what has been said so far in the trial. So my question is, can she legally really check herself out in the media when she is taking the stand as well? You know, it kind of doesn't really make any sense. So if we are to go a bit into detail, her PR crisis firm was Precision Strategies, which is a New York-based firm co-founded by Stephanie Cutter, a former advisor to President Barack Obama during his first presidential term. So as you can tell, Amber Heard already had a pretty good PR firm, right? If we are to connect this firm with Barack Obama, then if I'm honest with you, I would say they should be reputable, right? But for some reason, she wasn't really happy with this firm, so she decided to fire them because she received negative press. I mean, what was she expecting really? And how are they meant to be controlling everything that comes out in the media? And on social media, I mean, if you check TikTok, for example, the whole of TikTok is full of videos laughing at her, making fun of her, negative things about her. As a PR firm, I absolutely believe that you can't really control the narrative when we live in a world where the internet and the social media in general has a huge impact and also a huge spread all over the place. So I don't know what she was looking to achieve. And then after she fired her PR firm, she retained the services of Shane Communications, a corporate communications consulting firm that previously worked against Johnny Depp. Yes, she did that. The firm represented the actor's former business managers, the management group, when Johnny Depp filed a lawsuit against them for fraud and also breach of contract in 2017. I don't know about you guys, but again, I am thinking she's either copying parts of Johnny's life, right, by taking on this team that worked against Johnny Depp back then, or, which I think is more likely, she's kind of trying to flaunt this in front of him and to kind of show that, look at me, I have control, look at me, I work with the team that they went against you, look what I have with me against you again. So it's kind of like an event that she is trying to make sure that Johnny Depp would either relive or make sure that he won't forget about it. And then the flaunting. She's going to flaunt this because we already know from the media who the new PR firm is, the crisis management firm. So obviously that Johnny Depp at one point or another either is going to find out or he possibly already knows about it. A lot of experts in the field of PR in general, Hollywood experts and such, they are saying that this is the worst possible move that Amber can make in the middle of the trial. So my question is, why did she do it? Why did she decide to do it, particularly now as she was about to take the stand? What was the thought process with this? Was she trying to kind of turn those negative headlines into positive headlines? We know that PR firms, they pay people to write articles, they leak stories to the media to make one or another look in a bad line. So I'm guessing that probably Amber felt that her other PR firm didn't do a good enough job to bring some more articles against Johnny Depp. So then she perhaps was trying to find a more aggressive PR firm who could possibly be doing that. But the latest headlines that I'm reading about don't make really much of a difference in terms of the public opinion on Amber, even after she took the stand. Because yes, she took the stand yesterday, on Wednesday. Oh my god, this is another show. I feel like I'm watching a movie here, guys. Honestly, quite seriously. I feel like I'm watching a movie. Okay. So let's talk about the expert witness from Amber Heard's side this week on the stand. Dr. Don Hughes was called in as a forensic psychologist on Amber's team. Now, long story short, let's just say that I'm gonna put it out from the beginning, but we'll go into a bit more detail later on in the video. So the psychologist diagnosed her with PTSD from her DV relationship with Johnny Depp. Now guys, I don't know if you've watched Dr. Hughes' testimony or you haven't, but I watched her testimony in full, and if I'm honest with you, I have quite a few opinions on this. But for now, I'll tell you my opinions later on in the video, probably towards the end of the video. But for now, my very first impression, and I'm gonna tell you guys, literally my very first impression after 10 minutes of watching her testimony. Dr. Hughes describes exactly what we heard on all those audio recordings played in court. She describes exactly Amber Heard's behavior, and she paints exactly Amber Heard as being in the relationship. So Dr. Hughes points out behaviors in victims compared to behaviors in, right? And she says that the will be manipulative, they will be controlling, they will have fits of rage, they will be very jealous, they will be very possessive of the other person, of their partner. They will also try to make sure that when they are in the heat of the argument, the other person doesn't leave the argument. If they don't have a reason to, have an argument, they will pick on anything and everything to make sure they cause the argument, because this is what fuels them. And she said quite a lot of things, also degrading words being said, degrading, words being shouted at, shouting, screaming, physically fighting, physically being, throwing things around, throwing objects around, breaking stuff, so many things. But I want to play you a few clips so you can get a sense of her statements.
Dr. Hughes, did there come a time when you conducted a forensic psychological evaluation of Amber Heard? And please tell the jury what a forensic psychological evaluation is.
Could you turn it on at the bottom base?
Okay. A forensic psychological evaluation is an evaluation that is conducted for the courts to answer a particular legal question. It contains multiple parts. Ms. Heard is not a client of mine. She's never been in therapy with me. She's not under my clinical care. It is an objective evaluation to determine a particular legal question. Forensic evaluation follows a methodology that what we say it's a multi-method, multi-hypothesis driven methodology, which means I look at a variety of different documents and data using multiple hypotheses. It's not just one hypothesis, one theory of the case. You're going in looking to see, what possibly could be going on here. And then you use the data to arrive at that opinion. You look for consistency across the data to arrive at that opinion. And the forensic psychological evaluation has many parts. It has the clinical interview part, a structured or semi-structured clinical interview where I'm asking Ms. Heard lots of things about her life, both before Mr. Depp and after. It involves a psychological testing component of the evaluation, which allows me to do a good broad scan of different symptomatologies that people might have in their lives, as well as to have indicators of how she approached the test. Is she defensive? Is she malingering? Is she feigning? Is she exaggerating? It gives me indications about how she approached the evaluation. I review a number of documents, medical records, psychological records, the text, the audio, all the different things that we've had in this case, and then I conduct collateral interviews. Always approach a forensic evaluation with a healthy dose of skepticism. With any forensic evaluation, there exists a motivation that the individual may be telling you something that is not accurate. It doesn't mean that that's there, but you have to control for that and know that you're looking for, again, what does the data tell you, the external data, about what the person is also telling you.
Did the forensic evaluation follow a standard methodology, or was it specific to Ms. Heard?
No, this is my standard methodology that I would use with any individual who's in a forensic matter, and I would be called to evaluate them.
When did you meet with Amber Heard?
Okay, so I met with Ms. Heard for a total of about 29 hours. I met with her for the first time in September 2019. I saw her for 4 visits in my New York City office. That's about 21, 22 hours. And then I saw her twice over Zoom. One was in January 2021. And
Dr. Curry, in answering that question, were you consulting anything?
Dr. Hughes.
Dr. I'm so sorry. Dr. Hughes, were you consulting anything? Dr. Curry's here, I guess, as well. That's what confusion I saw right there.
I'm consulting my cheat sheet of the dates that I saw Ms. Heard so that I could accurately report to the court. I also have my final designation in front of me so that I could give the most accurate information to what I put in that report.
Okay. And do you want to see that? Okay. Should we just take the break now and have him look at it, or does he want to?
Would you like to look at it now or before cross-examination?
It's just to post it.
Okay, before cross-examination.
Okay,
All right,
that's
that's
fine.
fine. Thank you.
Okay. Please continue. I think you were telling us when you saw Ms. Heard.
Sure. So there were 4 dates in person in New York City for a total of about 21 and a half hours. And then I saw her in January 18th, 2021 over Zoom for 3 hours, and then December 27th, 2021 for 4 hours over Zoom.
At the end of that process, considering all the data, did you arrive at any expert opinions?
Yes, I did.
All right. I would like to start with your main expert opinions and then go through those. Can you please tell the jury what your main opinions were?
So like I said, there are opinions embedded within them, but the main opinion is that Ms. Heard's report of intimate partner violence and the records that I reviewed is consistent with what we know in the field about intimate partner violence, characterized by physical violence, psychological aggression, sexual violence, coercive control, and surveillance behaviors.
And what was the other main opinion that you had?
The second main opinion was that that Ms. Heard demonstrated very clear psychological and traumatic effects or the exacerbation of trauma from those statements that Mr. Depp made through his attorney. There were 3 statements that we evaluated to see how they affected her emotionally and psychologically, and it was my determination that they did.
And did you arrive at any diagnostic conclusions?
Yes, I did.
And what were those?
I diagnosed Ms. Heard with post-traumatic stress disorder.
And what, if any, etiology was associated with the post-traumatic stress disorder?
So the etiology is the cause. In order to meet criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, you have to have an actual cause. It's one of the few diagnostic entities that we have to have a cause for. And the cause was the intimate partner violence by Mr. Depp. That was what was pushing the symptoms. That was what's related to the intrusive phenomena. That was related to her avoidance. That was related to her differences in her mood. That was related to her avoidance efforts. So it was the cause was the intimate partner violence by Mr. Depp.
Now, let's talk about the psychological testing. You stated that you conducted psychological testing, is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you
Overruled out loud.
Can you please tell the jury how many psychological assessments you administered to Amber Heard?
I administered 12.
Can you please tell the jury which ones you administered?
So I am going to refer to my designation that has the list so that I don't forget anything.
Okay.
So I administered.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
She can refresh her recollection.
As long as she's not reading it.
Right. You just can't read. You're not supposed to read from it, but you can refresh your recollection as you're speaking.
So I can look and just look up, and that's refreshing my recollection? Okay.
All right, if we could approach for a moment.
The tests that you administered, please.
Yes, I can. I administered the personality assessment inventory, which is a broadband instrument to scan for psychopathology and psychological symptoms that people have. I administered the trauma symptom inventory too, which is an instrument to scan for common traumatic effects that people have. I administered the Miller Forensic Assessment of Symptoms test, which is a measure of malingering. I administered the post-traumatic stress disorder checklist for the 5th edition for the DSM-5. I administered the clinician-administered PTSD scale for DSM-5. I administered the Beck Depression Inventory, the Beck Anxiety Inventory, the Mood Disorders Questionnaire, the danger, I did 3 intimate partner violence measures, the Conflict Tactic Scale, the Abusive Behavior Observation Checklist, and the Danger Assessment Scale. And then I also did the Life Events Checklist, which scans and gets us to ask about a lot of traumatic events that an individual may have experienced, and we administer that typically before either doing the PCL or doing the CAPS.
Did you administer any tests that are specific to domestic violence?
Yes, I did.
Which ones?
So that was the Conflict Tactic Scale, the Abusive Behavior Observation Checklist, and the Danger Assessment Scale.
And what did they show?
Would like to refer to the testing.
To refresh
To
your
refresh
recollection?
my recollection, just a glance, so
Yes,
I can
you may do
be
that.
clear with the jury. So what the overall gist of the testing was that, and the benefit of these tests is that they allow me to ask for what Mr. Depp did to Ms. Heard, and then also what Ms. Heard did to Mr. Depp. So it was asking about both sets of behavior. And what
Objection, Your Honor. We're back to reading.
She wasn't even looking down. She was looking at the jury.
I don't. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Please continue.
So what these tests show was that there was a high degree of serious violence perpetrated by Mr. Depp toward Ms. Heard. There was violence more on the mild level perpetrated by Ms. Heard toward Mr. Depp, with one severe indicator, which was the punching that she indicated to me. There were scales about negotiation, about how much this couple tries to figure out their problems. They both scored, again, this is Ms. Heard reporting that, but they both scored in the high range where they're both saying that, yes, we're trying to figure this out, we're trying to work out this relationship. There were scores on the psychological aggression scale where Mr. Depp engaged in more severe acts of psychological aggression, whereas Ms. Heard did engage in also some mild and severe acts of psychological aggression. The amount of injury that was reported was significantly higher and more severe by Ms. Heard, what she was subjected to, and then she was subjected to violence where Mr. Depp, based on her report, was subjected to none. And then on the danger assessment scale, that there were a number of factors that were related to severity in violent relationships and a risk factor. When we look, as I said earlier, when behaviors come up on this scale, they're very worrisome, very scary, and we have to take them seriously. So there were a number of behaviors that came up on this scale, such as Mr. Depp threatens to kill her, the increase in severity of the abuse, the forced sexual activity, the choking behavior, his obsessive jealousy.
Objection, foundation.
She's talking about the test results.
Overruled, go ahead.
Please continue.
The obsessive jealousy, the control aspect, and his threatening to kill himself. So those were risk factors that placed her in the increased danger range. And this is a range that, says that we certainly have to advise women of their risk and consult with law enforcement if they're involved, or judges if they're involved, because this means that a woman is at risk for more serious or lethal domestic violence.
So did the results of the psychological tests you administered to Amber Heard support a diagnosis of PTSD?
Objection, leading.
What, if any, psychological tests did you administer that supported a diagnosis of PTSD for Amber Heard?
Sure. So there were 4 tests that supported that diagnosis. One was the PAI, which was that 344 question large scale personality inventory. On that test, her largest subscale, her highest subscale, was the one that measures traumatic stress. So that was clinically significant. On the TSI, 2 of her scales were the intrusive experiences dimension and the defensive avoidance dimension, 2 of the classic scales of trauma and PTSD. On the PCL, which is the post-traumatic stress disorder checklist 5, that she scored in all 4 domains of PTSD, and that's an instrument that says how much are you bothered by these symptoms. And in all 4 clusters, which would be the intrusive experiencing, when things about the abuse or the trauma enter your mind when you did not want them to. Sometimes they're cued, sometimes they're uncued. She answered in the avoidance category, which is a second category of PTSD, that I do things to try not to think about this, to try not to feel this, to try not to get upset. Sometimes I avoid certain people because they become a trigger for me. She scored in what we call the negative alterations in cognition and mood, changes in her thoughts and feelings as a result of the abuse and trauma, and also in the physiological hyperactivity, the hyperarousal, the hypervigilance, the startle response. So on the PCL, she endorsed symptoms in all 4 of those categories, saying, some of these symptoms are bothering me a lot. And then finally, the clinician-administered PTSD scale for the DSM-5. And what that allows me to do, unlike the PCL, is really look at symptom severity and symptom frequency. How is this really playing out for this individual? And similarly, she scored in all 4 categories of trauma and of having intrusive experiences and nightmares and avoidance efforts and physiological hyperactivity and changes in her mood and her thoughts. And her total score was a 28, which falls in the moderate range. So that means that she has experiencing a moderate degree of post-traumatic stress disorder symptomatology. And those tests allow me to make that definitive diagnosis that she suffers from PTSD.
Thank you. What, if any, consideration did you give to Amber Heard's history of childhood abuse in making your diagnosis?
That was a significant consideration, given that we know that childhood, well, first of all, we know that people can experience multiple traumas across the lifespan. And we wanted to make sure that the symptoms that she was experiencing were related to what she experienced with Mr. Depp and not her childhood. And certainly, earlier on in the evaluation and when I evaluated and spoke with her, that was true. And that was also true on the latest measure, the clinician-administered PTSD scale for DSM-5, the CAPS-5. And that's because the content, you have to look at what is the content of the symptom. So it's not that someone says, oh yeah, something traumatic comes into my mind. No, what is it? What comes into your mind? What bothers you? What are the triggers? And those were all specific to Ms. Heard's relationship with Mr. Depp. The reason the childhood is also significant is that we know that if somebody suffers childhood abuse as a child, they are much more likely to have an adult re-victimization. And they're much more likely then to be more vulnerable to obtaining a PTSD, to getting PTSD, if they've had that prior vulnerability. So it's a very strong vulnerability characteristic to obtaining PTSD when you have a subsequent trauma. The other aspect about her childhood is that she was raised in a family of violence. She was physically abused by her father. She saw her father abuse her mother. Her father was very explosive and had violent outbursts. And both her parents also struggled with substance abuse very significantly. So she had learned from a very early age how to caretake, how to live in a situation that is mired in chaos. How do I take care of a parent who's passed out, nodded out from heroin? And how do I get up and get my sister to school? She learned at a very early age that she had to figure out how to do this in this scenario. And I would say lastly, what that environment taught her was that she learned that she could love someone who hurts her. She knew that people who hurt her also can love her. And she learned how to have this tolerance for cognitive inconsistency. When you look at how he wanted her to there was some interference with the family, with her sister, when some things were leaked. You know, he was obsessed believing that it was Whitney who did it, and eventually Miss Heard had to succumb and say, okay, yes, it was, and then alienate herself from her sister because she just couldn't take the fights anymore. She just couldn't take the constant barrage of criticism. So there were many instances when, in terms of their interactions, she would have to text him right back, but when she would text him, he could not answer for days. And it's this sort of, when we talk about, you know, the ghosting, but your husband doesn't ghost you, your partner doesn't ghost you. And there were so many times of this sort of withdrawal of affection, which was on his terms and when he wanted to do it. I'm aware that there is, you know, testimony in this case that, you know, Mr. Depp decided to leave because he didn't want to be violent. And I do think that's true sometimes. I think he did leave in times where he didn't want an altercation. He did leave after an altercation. He did leave and then came back and continued the altercation. So leaving wasn't the defining variable. The problem was that, you know, with this obsessiveness and this perseveration that he had, the fight would always come back. So leaving might end the argument for that moment, but Ms. Heard knew he was always going to come back and he was going to, you know, start the interrogation once again.
And what is the effect of the coercive control on Amber Heard?
I mean, the effect was drastic. She talked to me that she, you know, her roles consistently dropped over the time that she was in the relationship with Mr. Depp, just because it was so difficult to go on auditions, to want to be in a different location with him. Whenever she was not on location with him, it was very stressful. It was very anxiety-provoking because of the accusations of infidelity. We heard that through Isaac Baruch's testimony when she called and was saying, babe, there's no one here, there's no one here. That was something that she had to do repeatedly and constantly over the course of the relationship. So it caused a significant amount of anxiety, of distress, of having to try to conceal and maneuver around him to try to have the career that she wanted to have. It made her hypervigilant, and definitely contributed to sort of her psychological symptomatology getting worse over time.
What about sexual violence?
So there was a number of incidents of sexual violence reported in this relationship. Those are documented early on in Dr. Bonnie Jacobs' notes, where when Mr. Depp was drunk or high, he threw her on the bed, ripped off her nightgown, and tried to have sex with her. There were times when he forced her to give him oral sex when he was angry. These weren't in loving moments. These were angry moments, moments of dominance, moments of him trying to get control over her. There was a time when they were in Hicksville in the trailer, I don't want to say trailer park, but I guess it's trailer park. It is a trailer park, where he was accusing her of a woman hitting on Amber, and that was the problem. Amber got accused of women hitting on her, and it got accused of men hitting on her. So there were so many targets that came through in his obsessive jealousy. There was another incident in the Bahamas where when he got angry, he took his fingers and he put them in her vagina and moved her around violently in the closet. Again, an act of sexual violence. And of course, the incident in Australia was one of the most severe instances of sexual violence that Miss Heard had to endure, in which when he was beating her and choking her and telling her, I'm going to fucking kill you, I hate you, I'm going to fucking kill you, and he grabbed a bottle that was on the bar and penetrated her with that bottle. And Miss Heard reported to me of dissociating and going outside of her body, and the only thing she was thinking is, oh God, I hope it's not the broken one.
What, if any, psychological abuse did you find?
There was a number of psychologically abusive behaviors. As I stated, Miss Heard admitted to me and reported that she engaged in those behaviors as well. She reported that she did call him names and offensive comments and said things to him that were horrible, and that she was incredibly saddened and horrified by her behavior. And looking back, she, at this point, not being in the constant barrage of abuse, does not recognize her. The abuse by Mr. Depp, he called her a number of names, frequently whore, slut, cunt, lesbian camp counselor, easy, ambition. Ambition was a weaponized term in that relationship. So he called her a lot of names and humiliated her. And of course, I think we talked about the intimidation tactics that, Mr. Depp was often banging and throwing and hitting things in the household, which sort of got the tension to rise up very significantly, very quickly.
Can you give us some examples?
Sure. So.
Vague.
Overruled, I'll allow.
So, for example, the Boston plane incident, I believe, without looking, I know May 24th, 2014. This is the incident where Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp were going to fly back to LA and spend the weekend together. They were shooting at different sites. Ms. Heard is on the plane waiting for Mr. Depp to come on in the tarmac. He's reportedly sitting in the SUV, smoking and drinking, smoking weed and drinking. She is filming with James Franco at this point, and she gets on the plane and he starts talking about James Franco, making a lot of derogatory comments about her, and I hope you had fun with your escapades, and some more inflammatory language. And then in an argument, when she got up to leave, he kicked her in the back, and she went forward on the plane, to the front of the plane, because he sat in the back of the plane. So if I look at what is the corresponding data to this, there's a therapy note, several notes in Bonnie Jacobs' records that talk about Mr. Depp's increasing use of alcohol and his obsessive jealousy around James Franco before this Boston plane incident. After the incident, Ms. Heard told her friend Io, she told her friend Savannah, she told her friend Rocky. Ms. Heard did not go home. She was afraid to go home. So she went to a hotel, because when Johnny was in these states, he would often show up because he's still in that drinking and drugging phase. And he talked about that. That was the roxycodone before he detoxed. He was still in that, high substance abuse phase, that he would often show up at night, and that did not feel safe.
Continue after that text.
Sure. So there was, Mr. Depp apologized to Ms. Heard for that incident. Mr. Depp said in his UK testimony, well, I only maybe playfully tapped her on the back with my foot. Mr. Depp texted Paul Bettany and talked about how he was so drunk and out of control and engaged in bad behavior. He texted his friend Patty Smith a very similar type of text about how drunk and out of control he was. And then finally, Amber Heard wrote an email talking about how distressed and heartbroken she was.
Objection, hearsay.
You concluded that Amber Heard used psychological abuse and some reactive physical violence, I think I heard you say. Is that correct?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
Can you please explain to the jury what you meant by that?
Yes, that is correct. That, Amber Heard reported to me some of the behaviors that she used that were psychologically aggressive, the name calling, the putting him down and calling him very bad names and insulting his fatherhood, and she was very shamed and remorseful about that. She also indicated, using, and as some of the testing showed, minor forms of violence, pushing, shoving, throwing objects. We see that a lot with women when there's not proportional force. Women are more likely to throw objects. And then the more severe act of punching him, which a punch falls in the more severe category. And the context, as she explained it, was that he was coming after Whitney, and she stood, her sister, and she stood in the way and she punched him.
Now, does that make Amber Heard a perpetrator of intimate partner violence?
Objection, leading.
Overruled.
So that was one of the tasks that I had to consider. That was one of the hypotheses that I had to consider. And given all of the other data, that was not my opinion.
And like I mentioned to you before playing the clips, I felt like what Dr. Hughes described was exactly Amber Heard. From the audio recordings that we have already heard in court so far. And I don't think that this is helping Amber Heard at all at this point. I don't think it's helping her at all. I have no idea what the lawyers are doing, but they are not helping her case at all. Because Dr. Hughes was meant to be on Amber Heard's team. But judging from the beginning of her statement on the stand, she doesn't paint a really positive picture of Amber. And the more we go further into it, into her statements, into her being on the stand, the more and more we will realize that it's actually playing out against Amber. I mean, this is the sense that I'm getting from this. I don't know how you feel. This is my opinion. But please do let me know in the comments down below, how do you feel that Dr. Hughes' testimony went. Also, in Dr. Hughes' testimony, she mentions that in her profession, they have to be very careful of gender stereotypes. Yes, I have a few words to say about gender stereotypes. I don't know if you've seen my short videos, which I posted I think yesterday. I did these videos very quickly for TikTok, and I posted them on YouTube as well. But she keeps saying this thing about gender stereotypes, yet she is the one that is doing the stereotyping. And I quite honestly hope that Johnny Depp's lawyers will pick on this, because from my point of view, Dr. Hughes is quite biased. In all her testimony, she only mentions a victim of DV as being a female, and she always mentions in a DV relationship as the male. She uses she pronouns for the victim, she, her, and she uses he pronouns for the, which is not only biased, but it feeds into the stigma surrounding male victims of DV, because not only they have to deal with the fact that being a male, they are not believed, and so they are too scared to come forward with an allegation of this kind and then risk being laughed at, because in so many cases the police even doesn't believe them. And then not only do they deal with the stigma of that, but then they have to deal with the stigma of, look at me, I'm the man, I'm the strong one, I'm the macho one. How can I be by a female who is much inferior to me in stature, in strength, in power in everything really. And then they are not only dealing with this, with the stigma of this and the stigma of the other thing, but now they also have to deal with the fact that as a man, I suppose you are not allowed to be the victim, which doesn't make any sense. And then you have the psychologist who is on the stand in a very, very public trial, yeah, which is live streamed everywhere in the world, saying on that stand that she sees, well, saying, not saying, but actually I could call it saying, maybe saying like this, saying or assuming from what I can tell that only females can be victims of DV, which brings a whole new level to the stigma that we already have. And we as a society, we should really do better than this. We should do better than this. We shouldn't differentiate female victims of DV from male victims of DV, because in the end it's not about the power, it's not about the strength, it's about the human being, it's about the fact that a man, even if he's 10 times taller than a woman, 20 times stronger than a woman, he can still be a victim of DV from that woman who you see, who is a shorty and she's very thin, and you know, you would say, oh my god, she's an angel, right? She can still be in the relationship, even though the man is twice her size, she can still be one. Why? Because men, even if they are twice the size of a woman, that's precisely the exact reason why he's not going to be because he sees her frail, he sees her, you know, kind of like, oh, she hit me, it's fine, I'll be fine, you know, it wasn't painful, it didn't hurt me, look, she's so tiny, she's so frail, how can I hit her back? It's not something that I do, right? I'm not saying that all men think like that, I'm not saying that all women think like that. All I'm saying is there needs to be equality, and also we need to recognize that we as a society, we have not only the responsibility to change this, but we are also to be blamed for this. Because if it wouldn't be for the stereotype, and if it wouldn't be for the woman, she's weak and she's frail, the man, he's strong and he's poor, therefore he cannot be a victim of DV because he can defend himself, right? Then we would live in a different world where men wouldn't be scared to come forward with these allegations. Because also I want to say that from a female perspective, from a female victim perspective, when the female victim is in a DV relationship, their behavior, the after effects of the DV relationship as well, it's quite different than for male victims of DV, I think. And I also think that with male victims of DV, they tend to suffer more than a woman would suffer, because this is going back right to the stigma surrounding this issue. Because men not only have to deal with all the aspects that females deal with as victims of DV, but on top of that, they also have to deal with the psychological effects that they are not believed, they will be laughed at, that how can they be because they are male. So you have here some extra psychological things that male in general need to be dealing with, which go on top of everything else that female victims of DV are dealing with, right? This is just the way I see it, guys. Is the way I see it. But my opinion is that equally a female can be a victim of DV, equally a male can be a victim of DV. And we shouldn't be, like I said, we shouldn't be splitting female from male when it comes to DV and to victims of DV. We should look at them as a whole, as a person, not gender. No, gender doesn't have anything to do with it, in my opinion. I mean, Dr. Hughes was trying to make this, was trying to highlight the fact that, for example, the way she put it, if you have a wrestling match, then of course the participants, the competitors, they will be put together in a match when they have similar weights. So they are kind of chosen by weight, and she says that this is because they are chosen by weight, simply because it involves more strength or less strength, and by default a woman is not so strong compared to a man. He's stronger than a woman, right? That's typical stereotyping, what she did. And from my point of view, that was very unprofessional. Not to mention the fact that she not only did that, but also she only treated female victims of DV in her entire career. Honestly, she treated female victims of DV. What does that say? Is she an expert on female victims of DV? Yes, you can argue that she is an expert in female victims of DV. Is she an expert in male victims of DV? No, because even she is stereotyping. How can you be unbiased and how can be neutral and look at things the way that they should be looked at if you are already stereotyping someone based on their gender? It doesn't make any sense. I really do hope that Johnny Depp's lawyer pick on this and also point it out in cross-examination. It will be really interesting to see. Now, in her testimony, Dr. Hughes also talks about risks of death in intimate partner violent relationships, and she highlights the risk factors surrounding as being, if you will see an escalation of where they go from small things and it keeps increasing, and then you will also see not only the escalation of they will become more violent in terms of what they do to the partner, but then also you will see the increased frequency of there. Then you will also see more and more often threats of them killing themselves. You will also see abusive text messages towards their partner, the victim. You will also see more coercive control. They will want to control everything, what they wear, what they do, where they go, where they've been, everything. Then you'll also start to see an increasing frequency in obsessiveness. They become more and more and more obsessive, kind of like they build on it. Then you will start seeing threats to kill their partner. You will start seeing increased jealousy, like for example, why are you talking to that man, or why are you talking to that woman, are you seeing them behind my back, and things like that. Then you'll also start seeing choking behavior. Then will often disappear for hours, for days on end, and you will have no idea where he's been or where she's been. And then when they come back with a changed behavior. And also the victim will find or create strategies to cope with like for example, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to open up about it, they feel guilt, they feel shame, they kind of keep everything inside because in their mind it's their fault, in their mind it's degrading for them to speak up to anyone around them about this. And so they will find these strategies or these coping mechanisms, if you will, for them to cope with a certain situation. Like for example, there are people who cope with a situation like maybe forgetting about it. They are not going to talk about it, they are not going to think about it, they are going to find some things to do, so they occupy their mind so that they don't think about it. And these are just a couple of strategies. And also Dr. Hughes mentioned that the victim in general will stay in the relationship for love, because this is coming from me. For example, when you are in a new relationship, you know those butterflies, you know those exciting moments where you really are looking forward to see your loved one and you can't wait to see them next time, and everything is pink and everything is a warm glow, as Amber put it, and won't show his violent side at the beginning of the relationship, because which partner wants to be with someone who are like that? So they will, at the beginning everything will be nice, everything will be perfect, love, hearts, butterflies, whatever you want to call it. And then as time goes on, slowly the violence starts showing. It will start slow with small things, maybe things that he or she says to the other person, maybe actions that they make to the other person, and at the beginning of it you kind of think like it's fine, you know, it's not gonna happen again, or maybe this is how they deal in certain situations, and then it kind of escalates and escalates. So this is what Dr. Hughes was trying to explain, and in a sense, in a way, it does make sense, the explanation, right? But anyway, you can see the clips and you can decide for yourself, but I think that what she's trying to point out here is that Amber is the victim, of course, and that Johnny did all of these things because he is in the relationship. Now, Dr. Hughes also mentions behaviors and actions of the victim of intimate partner violence, which is very interesting. From my point of view, it was very interesting when I got to the point of this. And so Dr. Hughes is mentioning emotional dysregulation, which means that when you are a victim of DV, you can't really control your emotions any longer, because at the beginning you don't know how to react. Then you start reacting maybe negatively, or you start reacting by trying to change the subject, or you start reacting by shouting, kind of like defending yourself, or you react by just ignoring what just happened and moving on like nothing happened. And then as time goes on, you kind of don't know what to do, but then also you can't control how you respond to a certain action or to a certain instance of DV, so you lash out in the moment. You can't control your emotions. So for example, your partner hits you and let's just say you hit back. That's what Dr. Hughes is trying to point out, that victims, they have emotional dysregulation. But in this instance, I can argue that yes, victims do have emotional dysregulation, which works just as well with Johnny Depp. For example, let's say if he did hit her or he did push her, he did so because he couldn't control his emotions anymore, because he got enough of it and he didn't know how to react anymore. And in that particular moment, he did what he did because he didn't have any control of his emotions. So it can be really argued both ways here. And she also made sure to point out that these emotional dysregulations are not the same as having bipolar disorder, but the sudden mood changes are there because of the yes, and yeah, you know where this is going, right? The victim of DV, they usually report as having depression, having anxiety, PTSD, they have difficulty trusting other people, they feel shame, they feel humiliation, rage, sleep disruption, low self-esteem, all these kind of things. And again, like I said, this can go either one of the two ways. Amber Heard is feeling this or Johnny Depp is feeling that. I honestly do not believe that Amber Heard is feeling all of this, but I honestly do believe that Johnny Depp kind of has these mood changes. I mean, I don't know him personally, obviously, and we are not there to see behind closed doors, but their behavior just doesn't seem like Amber Heard is the victim here. It seems more like Johnny Depp being the victim, if you have followed the trial so far. So we know that Amber Heard, she said that she reported depression. We know that she said that she reported anxiety, she reported symptoms of PTSD. But it's one thing to report something, and it's a completely different thing to actually suffer from it, because anyone can report anything. And if we are to talk about the sleep disruption in Amber Heard, she had sleep disruption way before she was even with Johnny Depp. I think we covered this in a previous video, so yeah, it doesn't really say anything. According to Dr. Hughes, some victims of DV, they also have what she calls dissociative amnesia. And this is very convenient for Amber's story to make sense, her saying dissociative amnesia. So dissociative amnesia is something like a portion of the memory gets blocked. The victim doesn't remember it, or they can't really retrieve it even when they try. So let's say, for example, that as a victim of DV, there was an instant moment where you are in that fight and something really bad happened, and I think that your brain is trying to protect you from remembering the trauma, so it blocks the memory, if you know what I mean. And so even when you try to remember, you can't really remember that particular point in time. And also there is another thing here, that when there are so many instances of happening in a relationship, at times you don't necessarily remember the times that the events took place or how many of them were. You kind of remember the general idea that yes, you got hit, you got hurt, and this and that, but at times again your brain, I guess, is trying to protect you from further trauma, and so it kind of blocks those negative things. In repeated, it's very common to lose specific details, because, so for example, you won't remember everything that happened in a particular instance, because usually the way that we work as human beings, and this works in so many other instances, your first reaction is to suppress that memory. So you protect yourself from further trauma or damage to yourself, right? So you kind of react internally to the trauma, but you don't show it to anybody. So this is how you are kind of trying to deal with everything that has happened, and you keep the feelings in. So let's say, for example, that a person can seem happy, cheerful, dancing, singing, whatnot, you know, being really funny, being really fun to be around, but actually you have no idea what's happening in there, because a lot of us, we are really good at hiding things to protect ourselves really from suffering even more. And the victims of DV are not only victims of DV, but in this particular instance, victims of DV, they will hide with appearances of being normal, of doing normal things. So let's say, for example, that you were in a fight, you got hurt, you are the victim of DV, and then the next day you need to go to work. You feel like you don't want to do anything, but you kind of internalize all of those feelings, you hide them away in there, and when you get out of that door, you put a smile on your face, you say hello to your colleagues, you say hi to your friends, you say hi to your bosses, you put a nice smile on your face when you are talking to a customer, but inside only you know how you feel, because just the previous day you were the one who was maybe hit, maybe hurt, injured, whatever happened. So yeah, Dr. Hughes also mentioned that she saw Amber for 29 hours during 4 visits. So the visits were in person and also via Zoom. She also had interviews with the therapist of Amber, and she also had an interview with Amber's mother, who sadly passed away sometime after the interview. And again, I'm going to mention this, Dr. Hughes diagnosed Amber Heard with PTSD, and also she said that she believes Amber Heard is a victim of DV, and the PTSD was diagnosed due to Johnny Depp being and this is the best one though. Dr. Hughes is saying that PTSD explains Amber Heard's behavior, and according to Dr. Hughes, just to put it plain and simple, women typically throw around objects when there is a difference of strength there, which didn't make sense to me when I heard it, even though she did explain it. But again, she is mentioning women. I don't want to mention women, I want to mention people, because women and men both can be victims of DV, and we need to stop discriminating. It really enrages me. Stop discriminating, stop the stigma around this, because male are victims of DV as well. We need to get it in our brains, guys, because we need to change this, because men are scared to speak out for this exact reason. So Dr. Hughes is saying that according to her, women typically throw around objects when there is a difference in strength. And the way she went on about it was, let's say for example that I'm going to refer now to the man being and the woman being the victim for, you know, for argument purpose, just to give you an example in this instance, the way that Dr. Hughes went about it. So let's say that the man is getting into a fight with the woman, right? And he starts hitting her, and she manages to kind of put some distance between him and her, and she gets to a further away point from him, and then she grabs an object, and in self-defense she throws the object at him because she wants to defend herself and she wants to make this stop. So she doesn't know how to make it stop, so she throws the object around. This is what Dr. Hughes' explanation was for women throwing around objects, because there is a difference in strength. Yes, which again, I'm saying it again, and I'll say it again and again. Strength does not make any difference in a DV relationship. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. No difference. Okay, so now you've seen the clips and everything that I mentioned about Dr. Don Hughes' testimony. Like I said it previously, my personal opinion, she's biased. Plain and simple, she is biased. She's only talking about female victims of DV. In her entire testimony, like I said, she uses she, her pronouns referring to victims and he pronouns referring to the... Again, I'm saying it, but I need to repeat it because I feel like it's not said enough. It revolves around the stigma, the stigma, the stigma. Dr. Hughes also doesn't have any experience working with male victims of DV. In any of her trainings, her seminars, her conferences, her research, her views, everything and all is directed towards female victims with all of those years of experience, which I think is not only unprofessional from her side and biased, but I think it should also be shameful on her side, because she is a professional and she is meant to be helping victims regardless of gender, and she is supposed to be seeing both sides of the coin because she says that she's neutral or whatever she says that she is. So yeah, this is putting it quite nicely. Yes, this is putting it quite nicely. My guess is, the way I see it, that she focuses on female victims of DV because it makes her more money. Allegedly, in my opinion. This is, guys, it's just me saying it. It's just me saying it. And then, mentioning being not very professional, you've seen Dr. Curry's testimony, and now we've seen Dr. Hughes' testimony. She's constantly referring to her deposition list of the tests that she performed on Amber Heard. Not only that, she has post-it notes with things on a piece of paper in front of her where she's consulting from, so, as she says, so she knows exactly what she's saying and so she doesn't forget things. But she's the only one that I've seen doing that. I don't even think it's allowed, really. She has notes, she brought a whole bag with her full of files and folders, different colored folders, and she put her papers on the desk in front of her while testifying, while being on the stand. Who does that? If you are a psychologist and if you say that you are so very experienced and you've seen Amber and you did all of these assessments and all of these tests, then surely you should have recollection of what you did, isn't it? Unless you don't want to forget that you said a certain thing in your deposition and then you say something else on the stand and then you are caught up in the lie, which is perjury, really, I think. Is it? Well, yeah, probably. So yeah, that's very interesting. At one point, Johnny Depp's lawyers even asked to see whatever the notes were on her desk, which I think was really good. And also at one point the judge asked her, and Amber Heard's lawyer asked her not to refer to the notes anymore unless she is just giving it a quick glance over to refresh her recollection, but she's not allowed to read from the notes anymore because she did it. So yeah, I'm glad that Johnny Depp's lawyers caught on it, because it was just getting ridiculous, honestly.
Dr. Hughes, if you need to consult your notes to answer something, let us know that you need to consult your notes. Otherwise, try to answer to the best of your ability. And then if you need to do that, just let us know you're consulting your notes, okay? The concern is that you not read from them, that you consult them as you need to. Okay?
Correct. I just don't want this to be a memory test of having conducted many documents, 80 pages of notes,
Well, you
and 12
can-
psychological testings to,
You can reference your notes, just don't read from them, okay?
yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, great. So please tell us what documents you reviewed. Please tell the jury.
Okay, so I reviewed a number of documents, a plethora of documents, most, and I obviously won't read them all, but I reviewed certainly all of Ms. Heard's testimony that she gave in her deposition testimony in this case, her deposition or her trial testimony in the UK case. I did the same thing for Mr. Depp. I reviewed his deposition testimony as well as his trial testimony in the UK as well. I reviewed a number of the depositions that were put forth in this case. I reviewed the psychological treatment notes for Dr. Bonnie Jacobs, Dr. Connell Cohen, Dr. Laurel Anderson, and Dr. Amy Banks, although she did not have treatment records. So I reviewed not only their records, did collateral interviews with some of them, and also read their deposition testimony, and also read other medical records in this case, nursing notes in this case, in the highlights. And I also listened to the audios that were put forth in this case and read the text messages and emails.
And what, if anything, did you do with respect to any videos?
And I also saw the video in the kitchen. Yes.
Okay. Now, the collateral interviews that you conducted, why did you conduct those?
Well, collateral interviews is a standard part of a forensic evaluation. It's an opportunity to hear from another treating clinician, the person who's actually treating the individual you're evaluating, and get a better sense from that person of what they saw, what they knew, how they experienced this person. Sometimes our clinical notes don't give the full breadth of what really was going on in that therapy, because the notes are meant to be sort of short and to the point of what happened, who was there, and what was the plan. So it was really helpful to talk to these two clinicians who really were with Ms. Heard throughout the duration of her relationship with Mr. Depp. So they give us sort of a contemporaneous look at what was going on for her emotionally, and then what was she reporting, what was she saying about the relationship to her therapist.
And you mentioned the name Dr. Bonnie Jacobs. Please tell the jury who Dr. Bonnie Jacobs is.
So Dr. Bonnie Jacobs was Ms. Heard's therapist, and may I refresh my recollection with my notes, Your Honor?
She's allowed to
For the
consult
dates,
the notes.
if you would like me to tell the dates.
If she's asking me a question, I'm not going to answer.
You're right, Your Honor. Yes.
May I?
Yes, you may consult your notes, yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Can we be heard?
And it feels like she was reading from a script. I mean, were Amber Heard's lawyers giving her a script to read from and to say things from? I think that this is practiced, isn't it? I think. I mean, legally, I believe that when you are a witness, your lawyer will probably train you before you get on the stand. If I can take anything from all the law movies I've seen. Yeah. Now we need to get to the cross-examination of Dr. Hughes, because this was very, very interesting to see. I think that the cross-examination from Johnny Depp's lawyers, it was very professionally executed in comparison to Amber Heard's lawyers. I mean, we know that Amber Heard's lawyers, they could get quite aggressive, quite violent, quite rude and condescending with the witnesses on the stand when they were trying to discredit them. But I think that Johnny Depp's lawyers, they did an amazing job. It was very, very professional. And yes, the lawyers picked on the female issues. the female issues that Dr. Hughes was on about. So let's just play a couple of clips so you can see for yourself.
Good morning, Dr. Hughes. I'm Wayne Dennison. We haven't met before.
No, good morning.
Good morning. You testified yesterday that you have to give careful attention to gendered stereotypes. Correct?
That is correct.
When you're talking about intimate partner violence, you have to pay attention to gendered stereotypes. And during your testimony, you in fact paid attention to gendered stereotypes, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, you said we were going to have to pay attention to gendered stereotypes, and then you testified at length where you referenced both men and women. You paid attention to those stereotypes during the course of your testimony, correct?
What I was saying was you have to pay attention to gendered stereotypes when you're conducting these evaluations. You can't assume all the time that the male is the perpetrator and the female is the victim. You have to go into the evaluation understanding that the male also could be the victim of intimate partner violence.
In fact, you're aware that there are large-scale studies that do say that IPV towards males does exist.
Of course.
Okay. And every time you referred to the characteristic of a victim of intimate partner violence yesterday, you used the pronouns she or her, didn't you?
I was using the she and her pronouns in this case because my determination was, as I stated, that Ms. Heard was the victim of intimate partner violence. That is why I was using the she, her pronouns.
You, in fact, said women gets into the relationship for all the right reasons. That's what you said. The woman gets into the relationship for all the right reasons. And then you say difficult for victim to extricate herself. You go on to say that she can and she should. Over and over, you use she, right?
I believe in this case I did because I was referencing this case where I found Ms. Heard to be the victim of intimate partner violence. It doesn't mean that men don't get into the relationships for all the right reasons too. I believe they do.
Nearly every time you referenced the perpetrator of IPV, you used he or him, didn't you?
And it goes back to the same reasoning as I'm describing my understanding and my evaluation in this matter. Of course, men can be perpetrators and victims of intimate partner violence. That's well established in the research, and that's well established in my clinical practice as well.
Isn't the reason that you used the pronouns that you did that you almost always testify on behalf of a woman?
That's not correct.
You don't even remember the last time you testified on behalf of a man.
Well, I don't testify on behalf of someone. I testify as to the results of my evaluation. I frequently treat and assess male victims of childhood sexual abuse who are coming into treatment for abuse by their Boy Scout leader, by their coach, by their teacher, by a trusted adult. I see them in therapy. I see them in forensic matters, in criminal cases. So I treat and evaluate men all the time.
I didn't ask you about treatment. I asked you about testimony. You broke out your practice between treatment and testimony. I'm not asking about treatment. When's the last time you testified on behalf of a man?
I testified recently in a deposition on behalf of a man who was traumatized because he was wrongly convicted.
At the time of your deposition 6 weeks ago, you couldn't remember a single time you had testified on behalf of a man.
I testified in my deposition that I testified in a case of a man who was wrongly convicted about 20 years and suffered physical and sexual violence in prison, and I detailed the traumatic effects of that happened on that gentleman.
All right, why don't we take a look at your deposition?
Sure.
All right. Transcript of the deposition that you gave March 28th, 2022, correct?
Yes.
All right. Let's go to page 77. Page 78, line 8. So you can't recall a single instance where you were hired by the attorney representing the male in an IPV matter, correct?
In an IPV matter, not in a trauma matter or a child abuse matter.
Okay, so that's the distinction. You don't have any recollection of ever testifying on behalf of a male in an IPV matter.
As I stated yesterday, the very first case that I testified in was in a same-sex intimate partner violence where the man was the victim of another man. I routinely treat and assess same-sex couples where then the female can be the perpetrator of another female, and the male can be the perpetrator or a victim of his partner.
So, let me get this. You testified in a case where one male is alleged to have engaged in IPV against another male.
Correct.
All right. Okay. But that's the only one you remember. That's the only one you remember.
No, I've done this frequently. As you well know, most cases don't go to trial. I've worked on hundreds and hundreds of cases. You've limited to testimony. Many cases don't come to trial, but I've issued reports and worked on many cases of same-sex intimate partner violence where men are the victims.
But I did ask you about testimony, and I limited the question to testimony, and the only testimony that you remember is the same-sex couple, right?
There were multiple same-sex couples, I believe, that I testified
That you testified in court at trial.
I believe so, yes.
All right, but you didn't remember that in March.
I did remember that in March.
Okay. You're a professional witness, correct?
That's not correct.
No? You make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year testifying in court, correct?
Not testifying in court, I conduct thorough, comprehensive psychological evaluations of individuals who are involved in a court case. The majority of those cases never show up in a courtroom. And half of my practice and half of my income is about my clinical work with people who are coming to me for therapy.
I didn't ask you about the other half of your income. I'm asking you whether you made hundreds of thousands of dollars a year testifying as an expert witness in court.
As you're phrasing that question, that's not correct. That would be the amount of income that I generate from my forensic practice. I testify perhaps maybe once or twice a year. Most of the work is done behind the scenes in evaluating individuals and issuing reports.
But you'll agree with me that a big part of that practice is providing expert witness testimony.
That's not correct.
No? That's not a big part of your practice.
If I testify twice a year, that's not a big part of my practice. All the other time is doing the work for the cases and evaluating the individuals and issuing reports.
What percentage of work do you devote to forensic psychology?
As I stated yesterday, I say half and half clinical, half forensic, but I also have a substantial amount of time that I use in the professional activities and serving on professional boards. Depp as a gift.
All right. And you speak Spanish?
Un poquito?
Do you know what it says?
Yes, it says hasta la muerta, until death.
So a woman you suggest has characteristics of being afraid for her life, gives her intimate partner a large knife, which she has inscribed until death. That's your testimony?
Well, there's context.
Okay. We can do that later. So you talked a little bit about Mr. Depp purporting to demonstrate jealousy with Ms. Heard. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And you specifically talked about Mr. Depp displaying jealousy regarding the actor James Franco.
Correct.
The very first time you met with Ms. Heard, she talked to you about Ms. Franco, Mr. Franco, James Franco, correct?
I don't know if it was the first time, but I did ask about some other relationships.
Okay. So do you recognize the document that's in front of you?
Yes.
All right. And what I would like to do, what is it?
It's a top sheet of a background information questionnaire that I use to help guide the evaluation.
Okay. So now, who filled it out?
I filled it out.
Whose form is it?
My form.
All right. 1246 has been moved into evidence. Can we blow up the bottom right-hand corner?
All right. You want to publish to the jury?
Yeah, let's publish it to the jury. So this is in the bottom corner, your notes. And it's under the section of your notes that's entitled intimate relationships.
Correct.
Right. And one of the notes here on the right, it says JF, that's James Franco, right?
Correct.
Got close but really wanted to be with Johnny.
Well, it says JF friends. They were friends.
All right. Said friends, but you put him under intimate relationship.
Well, there's a line there because I was asking specifically about other things that were allegations in this matter.
There's a line there because you did not believe that they should go under intimate relationships, but it's on your form?
She wasn't telling me that this was an intimate relationship. I queried as to what's going on with James Franco because that was something that was raised in this case.
And there's a note for December 2015.
When they became more friends, more friendly.
Right. And that was a period of time in which Ms. Heard was married to Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
So she became close with Mr. Franco in December 2015, and at least you put it under intimate relationships.
With a line differentiating another part of this document.
Okay. Did you provide another header, like a header that says friends?
No.
No. Well, let's look at the next one. The next one says, I think it says Elon.
Correct.
It's Elon Musk, right?
Correct.
All right. May 2016.
Correct.
Met Ball.
Correct.
That's a big fancy party in New York, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. And she says she dated him after Johnny.
Correct.
She met Elon Musk in May 2016 when she filed a TRO.
The last answer was May 21st. I believe it was May 26th, 27th. I'm correct.
When did she start dating Elon Musk?
Sometime after that.
All right. Yeah. Sometime after the TRO?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. You talked quite a lot yesterday about this concept of reactive violence.
Yes.
Yeah. Just so I understand your position on this, is it your position that if Miss Heard was abused, she gets to hit Mr. Depp?
That's not my opinion.
But you know she hits him, right?
And I testified to that.
Right. And how many times do you believe that she told you that she hit him?
Do I believe that she told me, or how many instances were there?
Well, I don't know. How would you know other than her telling you? You weren't there, right?
I was not there. That's correct.
All right. How many times did she admit to hitting him?
She indicated a number of times in a number of instances.
All right. You indicated that you had listened to audio recordings as part of the work you did in this case?
That's correct.
All right. I'd like to play you a portion of one of those recordings.
I said to Travis, I said to you, hey, tell Travis what just happened.
Oh, you told me to do it. You told me to. You said, go do that.
I said, no, tell him what just happened.
And I lied.
And that you punched me in the
You're right.
thing. And
You figured it out.
And you said, no, I didn't. What the are you talking about? And I
didn't
watched
punch
you lie. And then
I didn't punch you, by the way. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, you've been in a lot of fights, been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No, when you have a close
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not deck you. I was hitting you. I don't know what motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are you?
What am I supposed to do? Do this? I'm not sitting here bitching about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a fucking baby.
Because you started.
You are such a baby. Grow the up,
You
Johnny.
started physical fights.
I did start a physical fight.
Yeah, you did, so I had to get the fuck out of there.
Yes, you did. So you did the right thing, the big thing. You know what? You're admirable.
You agree with Ms. Heard that it's admirable to retreat from a fight?
Is it admirable? It is admirable to retreat from a fight.
Yeah. Anything about this tape suggest to you that it's characteristic of reactive violence
In this instance, if true, if she said she hit him first, then that would not be reactive violence.
All right. You testified that Ms. Heard reported to you that she engaged in low levels of violence, correct?
Well, I don't think she said that. I think that was the characterization of knowing the types of minor and severe levels of violence.
Oh, okay, I got it wrong. You consider it low levels of violence.
Well, I considered what the literature and the research talks about low levels of violence as opposed to severe levels of violence.
And I think you suggested that Ms. Heard sustained more severe injuries, correct?
I think I said more frequent injuries.
More frequent, but not more severe.
Well, certainly the incidents in Australia and the sexual violence and the incidents on December 15th, 2015 were quite severe.
You said you reviewed medical records in rendering your opinion.
Correct.
And you reviewed photographs.
Correct.
Now, other than the reports to her therapists, which you call medical records, right?
Yeah, I would call those medical records,
Right.
sure.
Other than the reports to her therapist, there's not a single medical record that reflects any injury to Ms. Heard, is there?
That's not correct.
No. There is not other than what doctor reflected injuries to Ms. Heard?
The note by Erin Borum, her married name, Falat, I'm not recalling her married name, indicated that she was headbutted by Mr. Depp and that she went for a concussion check and she had a busted lip and then she went to Dr. Kipper's office in order to get checked.
What? And there's a medical record other than that note that reflects it?
There's a note that she showed up at Dr. Kipper's office. There's a note in the
But
similar
there's
2
nothing
days
from
that
Dr. Kipper,
Dr.
is there?
Laurel Anderson saw the 2 bruises from that same incident as well.
All right. You reviewed photographs.
Yes.
All right. I'd like to put up PX 144. It's been published to the jury briefly. I'm going to keep it up very briefly. That photograph doesn't reflect a low level of violence, does it?
Well, that reflects a severe injury, I would agree.
Yeah. Why don't we go to PX 145? That's a severe injury that ended up with Mr. Depp on a gurney, correct?
That is a severe injury, correct.
Yeah. Is it your testimony that throwing a can of mineral spirits at your spouse is characteristic of reactive violence?
If you are running away from your spouse who is trying to hurt you, yes.
All right. So you can throw a can of mineral spirits. What about if you throw a can of Red Bull?
Again, it depends on the incident I think that you're referring to. That was not necessarily reactive violence. That was in a state of frustration or anger.
All right. So when you throw a can of Red Bull in a state of frustration or anger, that's not reactive violence?
No.
All right. What about if you throw a bottle of vodka because your husband fell off the wagon? Is that reactive violence?
Are you asking me hypothetically?
I'm asking you, would that be a characteristic of reactive violence? Throw a bottle of vodka because your husband fell off the wagon.
If it's in the middle of an assault, perhaps. If it's independent of that, no.
Right. So, for instance, if your husband was just having a couple of shots at the bar.
Again, you would need more information and context to make that determination.
All right. You don't think that's a reflection of reactive violence? And you'll agree with me that when you throw the second bottle, that's not reactive violence.
If somebody's throwing multiple bottles, again, psychological violence and abuse is psychologically destabilizing, which destabilizes individuals' coping strategies. That is absolutely true.
Lost what's true. Is it your testimony that once you've thrown one bottle and missed, when you throw the second one, now it's reactive violence?
That's not what I'm saying. I don't think throwing bottles is acceptable in any context.
Now, very interesting is that Dr. Hughes also testified about Johnny being extremely jealous of James Franco whilst Amber was working on set with him. Yes. She pointed that out, and she pointed that out in such a way that she made it sound like Johnny being a jealous person because he's and that's why he's being jealous, and that's why he's been jealous of everyone around Amber Heard. So yeah, this is what she was trying to point out. But of course, we now know that Amber Heard did really cheat on Johnny with James Franco. So Johnny wasn't very further apart from the truth, was he? He was quite right to be jealous. He saw something there, I think. I mean, I think any man or woman would be jealous in a relationship if they would see their partner being kind of too close to another person for just a simple acquaintance sort of thing. Dr. Hughes also testified that Johnny was being extremely controlling with how Amber would dress, which roles she would take, and Dr. Hughes made sure to point this out as a trait of DV, that an extremely controlling behavior. So she pointed out the fact that Johnny was controlling with how Amber would dress, in the sense that Johnny believed a certain dress or a certain outfit is too revealing and she shouldn't go out with it, or Johnny believed that Amber Heard shouldn't take this role because it's not suitable for her because it just shows too much or whatever else. So I want to address this, and specifically I want to address the dress issue, how she would dress and how Johnny would be controlling, extremely controlling. Now, you might call me old-fashioned, right? And I've not only been in DV relationships, I've been in a relationship where it was a normal relationship, my husband, right? And from my point of view, I think that when your partner is telling you that you shouldn't dress in a certain way, it can be negative, but I think that it can also be positive. I mean, you are a couple in the end, and let's say, for example, that you go outside with each other together and you kind of, how can I say, you kind of represent each other as a couple, right? Like, for example, if you are a housewife and your husband goes to work in his white shirt, all wrinkled, which is not ironed or anything, it's kind of like, I think that this is in my culture. I don't know if it's in everybody else's culture, but this is just my culture and my education personally. In my country, they say that a man is the image of how a woman takes care of him. So that's why I gave you the example of a man going to work in a white shirt, clean shirt, but all wrinkled. It kind of shows that the woman is not really looking after her husband. I might be old-fashioned, I don't know, but I think that I kind of agree with this, if I'm honest. I do. I kind of agree with it. You might have a different opinion, and that's fine. So I think that the same thing goes with a woman going with a man, let's say hand in hand together, and the woman has a really tight skirt which just goes under her bum, and her husband is going out with her, and then you have all of these people around you who are whistling at the woman, who are looking at her a certain way. She's revealing half of her boobies and everything, and your partner would be uncomfortable, right? I think. And so, out of respect for your partner, you should probably dress more decently. I don't even know how to explain this, guys, but I never liked the fact, this is happening quite everywhere nowadays, I never agreed with the fact that celebrities, actors, actresses, anybody who is in the public eye, they are becoming more and more revealing. It's kind of, are you selling your art or are you selling your body kind of a situation? This is how I feel. You don't need to agree with me. I'm not trying to offend anyone, but this is just my view on things. For example, when I watch on telly a certain celebrity and I see her or him, like for example, I don't know, whoever lady is wearing a dress which goes just covering a bit of her nipples and all her breasts are out, I kind of feel uncomfortable watching it. and also I feel like you are just revealing too much of yourself to the world, because why do you feel the need to do that? I mean, we all have the same things. We all have bodies, we all have breasts, we all have bums, we all have nipples, but do we really need to show it to everyone? Do you get what I'm trying to say here? And also, we also need to remember that Johnny Depp is known all over the world. He is an actor, and he's a very well-known actor, and he's been on the scene for decades. So of course that the way a partner would dress represents him as well, isn't it? And is it such a bad thing that he doesn't want Amber to dress in a certain way so that other people don't have misconceptions about her? Like I said, I am biased, for example, on this thing with seeing celebrities on the screen and half naked in front of the whole world, and I'm thinking to myself, are you selling your music or your art, or are you selling your body? That's how I feel. It might be biased, but this is how I feel. So my guess is that a lot of people will feel the same. Maybe they are too scared to say it, but they will feel the same. So if you think about a celebrity going in front of the paparazzi dressed in a bikini, topless, and she has a husband, what will their friends say about her? What will his family say about her? You know, this kind of things. And also which roles she should take. I mean, I don't know what conversations were around this, because so far I haven't heard anything about Johnny saying about this. So she's saying that he didn't like her taking on roles which were too revealing, or maybe making her look like a whore or whatnot. Again, I am saying he is Johnny Depp, he is a professional, he is an actor for decades on the scene. He has more experience than she has, and perhaps he didn't mean it in a degrading way to tell her. Perhaps he meant it so that it benefits her better in the future. I honestly don't know. I can't really give any opinion on that, if I'm honest. Now, there was also a note from Dr. Hughes shown in cross-examination which mentions Amber Heard got close with James Franco, but really she wanted to be with Johnny. So this note is what Amber told Dr. Hughes, and Dr. Hughes wrote it down on a piece of paper, and that's going to be on your screen. What I'm taking from this as just a mere spectator to the whole trial, when Amber said that she got close with James Franco but really wanted to be with Johnny, this tells me that she had something intimate with James Franco there. But when the intimate thing happened, she really felt like she wanted to be with Johnny, not with James Franco. So this tells me that they were much more close than just friends or acquaintances. And again, this goes back to Johnny being jealous of James Franco. And then this goes back to the CCTV in the elevator of the building where Amber and Johnny lived, where they were too close to just be acquaintances, in my opinion. So I really do think that on this occasion Johnny was right to be jealous, because indeed Amber Heard did cheat on Johnny with James Franco. There were some very interesting points made there by Johnny Depp's team in cross-examination, quite honestly. Then we also have another note on Dr. Hughes' notes about Elon Musk. Johnny's team did point out these details in the cross-examination, and I think they really did a brilliant job on that, and I think it's worth mentioning. So Amber, she meets Elon Musk in May 2016. That's when they meet each other the first time, right? Apparently at a Met ball, maybe the Met Gala or something. Now, Amber Heard, if you remember, she filed a temporary restraining order against Johnny Depp in the same month, in the middle of May of 2016, the same month after meeting Elon Musk. A couple of weeks after she filed the restraining order, she started dating Elon Musk. Now, you can't tell me that in a matter of a few weeks, they develop a relationship and they are together after the restraining order. So I think that what happened here, I think that this is from my point of view, I think that Amber Heard, she already saw Elon Musk before filing the restraining order, and she kind of used this as an excuse and pretext to file the restraining order because she wanted to be with Elon Musk, and so how could she do it, you know, so it doesn't damage her even more. So probably she came up with the idea, let me file a restraining order, show the world that Johnny Depp is that I have been a victim of DV, or maybe she even wanted to show this to Elon Musk, because as far as I'm aware, she told Elon Musk that Johnny Depp was being towards her. So maybe she wanted to show Elon Musk that she wasn't lying, and then she filed a restraining order and she used this excuse, and then she started dating him, because obviously being in the public eye, she would have to come up with some kind of a story to be able to go in public with Elon Musk. And honestly, I think that she really wanted to go in public with Elon Musk to benefit her even more. Not only is Elon Musk a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever, but he's very well known, just like Johnny Depp is very well known. So she kind of goes from Johnny Depp, a really well known actor, to Elon Musk, a really well known person. So yeah, you know, kind of like for appearance's sake and maybe to further benefit her own career. In Dr. Hughes' testimony, she also mentioned reactive violence. Now, she explained that reactive violence, I think that it's better if I say it, that is like a defense. So kind of defending yourself. That's more or less reactive violence. So she explained that, for example, your partner, hits you, you hit back because you are doing it in self-defense. So this is basically more or less what reactive violence is. Now, in cross-examination of Dr. Hughes, an audio clip was played to her, and she specifically says that in that particular audio clip, Amber Heard is not using reactive violence because Johnny Depp was not the one instigating or starting the fight, but it was Amber who started the fight. So she wasn't defending herself, she was the one who was being. Dr. Hughes also mentions that where a person in a DV relationship hits first, that's not considered reactive violence. We have seen and heard so many instances of Amber Heard doing that. And again, I'm going back to Dr. Hughes, and again, I'm going back to the fact that the whole testimony of Dr. Hughes didn't really help Amber Heard's case, if I'm honest with you. This is just the feeling that I got from it. It didn't really help to make a point that she is a victim. It just strengthened my belief that yes, indeed, Amber Heard is in the relationship, and Johnny Depp is sadly the victim of DV. There was also another very interesting point being made. You know what, guys? Amber, she reported everything about the relationship to Dr. Hughes only in 2019, after Johnny Depp sued her for defamation, and she even did the same thing with her therapist. Do you know where I'm trying to get with this? She was kind of preparing for the defamation. She kind of already had a plan in place. She made she kind of created these stories, and she knew that she needed some notes from the therapist, and she knew that she will probably have an evaluation done, so she kind of got everything ready for that. That's why she went back to seeing her therapist, the therapist that she saw even before Johnny Depp relationship. She went back to seeing the therapist, and she made sure to mention to the therapist, because obviously that makes a great point for the following trial, right? And then she also told the psychologist in 2019 about from Johnny Depp, again getting ready for what I think the following trial, which we are seeing now. There is also a thing which Dr. Hughes did. Dr. Hughes actually assessed Amber Heard's relationship with Johnny Depp without ever speaking to Johnny Depp herself. And she didn't, as far as I'm aware, she didn't even speak to she didn't even interview their marriage counselor, which I think it's quite telling, isn't it? It's kind of like she was trying to ignore any evidence which showed Amber Heard in a negative light, or which showed Johnny Depp as being either the victim or both of them being in a toxic relationship to each other. Now, guys, for the piece of resistance, I'm leaving it towards the end. Amber Heard took the stand. Yes, baby, she did take the stand. She did. And what a show. What an embarrassing and awful show. We need to see some clips. We need to see them.
All right, your next witness.
Your Honor, we'd like to call Laura Amber Heard to the stand.
All right.
Amber Laura.
I do.
All right, thank you. All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Will you please state your name
Yes, it's Amber Laura Heard.
and what is your address?
I live in Yucca Valley, California.
And how old are you, Amber?
I am 36. I just celebrated.
Okay. And do you have a daughter?
I do. She also celebrated her birthday recently. She's 1.
Okay. And what is your profession?
I am an actor, mostly.
Okay. Now, why are you here?
I am here because my ex-husband is suing me for an op-ed I wrote.
And how do you feel about that?
I struggle to have the words. I struggle to find the words to describe how painful this is. This is horrible for me to sit here for weeks and relive everything. Hear people that I knew, some well, some not. My ex-husband, with whom I shared a life, speak about our lives in the way that they have. This is the most painful and difficult thing I've ever gone through, for sure.
Now, there was a trial in the UK in July of 2020 where Mr. Depp had sued the Sun newspaper and Dan Wooten. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And what was your level of participation in that lawsuit, in that trial?
Well, I was not party to that lawsuit. I was a witness, I suppose the primary witness, since it dealt with the truth of the relationship that I shared with Johnny.
And what, if any, role did you have to play with respect to, for example, witness statements and testifying?
Objection, compound.
I said, for example.
Overruled.
I had to write, I think I gave 7 witness statements under oath testimony. I sat on the stand for 4 days under mostly cross-examination. And up until this point, it was the hardest thing I had ever had to do.
Thank you, Amber. I'm going to take you back, and if you can just tell the jury a little bit about your background. Tell us where you grew up.
I come from Austin, Texas, a small town.
Did there come a time that you ended up having to go on a press tour for the Rum Diary?
I got a call for the Rum Diary press tour in the fall of 2011.
So that's close to 2.5 years after you filmed?
I'm an actress, not a mathematician for a reason. Roughly, yes.
Okay. And could you please describe for the jury what a press tour is? Just explain it to them.
Well, you take a movie once it's completed, and if it doesn't have distribution, you, as part of the promotion of that movie, you go to these various places, normally cities like London or New York, and you do press events in those cities to kind of promote the film, and you go to place talking about the film.
And so you were then called to participate in the press tour for the Rum Diary?
Yes, I had I had just finished going through the process of separation with my former partner, and I was moving and going through that, and I got a phone call saying, remember that movie you did in Puerto Rico? Well, they want you for the press tour. And I said, well, perfect timing. And we did that, I think late October 2011.
Okay. So describe for the jury your interactions with Mr. Depp during the press tour.
Well, on the the beginning of the tour was Los Angeles, where we both lived, and we did a press day, normal press day, and then at the end of it, I was invited by Johnny to come up to his room to have a drink with him and the director of the film. And I went up to the room to see both him and Bruce, but as soon as I got there, Johnny said Bruce wasn't going to make it. So I stayed. Johnny and I started talking. He asked me about my relationship. I said, well, you know, I'm going through it. I'm going through the separation right now, and it's been, you know, rough couple of months, but that's normal. And he said, well, that's same with me. You know, it's been, I can't remember exactly how long he said it had been, but that he had split from the mother of his kids, and said that he understood. So on the couch, we talked, finished some wine, and then I got up and left. And as I went to leave, he grabbed both sides of my face, similar to what he did in Puerto Rico when we were filming that scene. And he kissed me, and I kissed him back.
And what happened next with respect to any relationship with Mr. Depp?
Well, then we fell in love. We went on this press tour. I think in London, he had me sat next to him at a dinner, and then we ended up spending the night together in my hotel room. And for the rest of the press tour, it was on. I'll put it that way. Once we were back from the press tour, you know, we had this, you know, whirlwind romance kind of just in these like beautiful places all over, and we're falling in love and not able to really show it because the world didn't know about the split between he and his former partner. And of course, as a woman, I was like, is that troubling? You know, and I'd ask him, no, you know, he swore to me that they hadn't even shared a bed for a year, and that they were protecting the kids and not publicizing it. So, or not making it known to the press. And so we kind of had to be a little bit under the radar, not a little bit, we had to be really under the radar, because as Johnny pointed out, that the world would blame me, and call me a homewrecker, even though I had nothing to do with it. So we were secretly dating, and then, you know, it was beautiful. It was, I felt like this man knew me and saw me in a way that no one else had. I felt he understood me. I felt he understood where I came from. I felt that, like, when I was around Johnny, I felt like the most beautiful person in the whole world. You know, it made me feel seen, made me feel like $1 million. And that kind of feeling where, you know, he's just lavish gifts and lavish expressions of love, and how he had never met a woman like me. I mean, I remember he took the foil off of this bottle and put it on my ring finger, and I had only been with him like days, you know, or maybe it was weeks at the time. Yeah, it was probably about a few weeks, but it just felt very intense. But we weren't doing normal life stuff. We weren't like stuck in traffic with each other. We weren't going to the grocery store and doing life. We were like hiding in these places around the world. He has so many homes. And so we'd be in one of those homes, or my home at the time, and it would be like a bubble, like we were in this little bubble of secrecy, and it felt like a warm glow, as we would say. Just music and the kind of books that we both loved and poetry that we both knew by heart, and it felt like a dream. It felt like absolute magic.
Okay, so first of all, I've seen the psychologist's testimony before seeing Amber Heard's testimony, and if you put them next to each other and you compare them, you can tell clearly that Amber Heard is copying whatever Dr. Hughes is saying of how victims of DV behave, react, and they feel, of how they should react, of their emotions, of how they feel in that particular moment, of what goes through their mind, what are they thinking about why she kept on staying with Johnny Depp even if she was a victim herself. She kind of copies every single thing that Dr. Hughes mentioned which benefits her.
Drinking, and we're talking, and there's music playing, and he's smoking cigarettes, and we're sitting next to each other on the couch. And I ask him about the tattoo he has on his arm. And to me, it just looked like black marks. I didn't know what it said. It just looked like muddled, faded tattoo that was hard to read. And I said, what does it say? And he said it says wino. It says wino. And I didn't see that. I thought he was joking. Because it didn't look like it said that at all, and I laughed. It was that simple. I just laughed because I thought he was joking, and slapped me across the face. He's crying, tears, just falling out of his eyes. He gets down on his knees, and he grabs my hands, and he's touching my hands, and he's saying to me, I will never do that again. I'm so sorry, baby. I put the fucker away. I thought I killed it, and it's done. I thought I put the monster away, and I've done it before. It's done. I thought he was the love of my life. And he was. He was. But he was also this other thing. He was also this other thing. And that other thing was awful, awful thing that would come out and take over. And it was, you couldn't see the Johnny I loved underneath it. It was this other thing. And no one told him. No one was honest with him. No one... he'd pass out in his own vomit. He'd lose control of his body, he'd lose control, and everyone would clean up after him. I cleaned up after him. This man lost control of his bowels, and I cleaned up after him. His security cleaned up after him, changed his pants in front of me. He would pass out in his own sick. And then he'd walk around saying he didn't have a problem. He said he was looking for his drugs, his cocaine, his coke. I was wondering how somebody who didn't do cocaine and was against it, that was in and of itself causing problems in our relationship. How could I hide? Why would I hide his drugs from, like he was insinuating that I was doing it or something? It made no sense. He was telling me we're gonna conduct a cavity search, shall we? Just shoved his fingers inside me. And I just stood there staring at the stupid light. didn't know what to, I didn't know what to do. I just stood there. While he did that, he twisted his fingers around. I didn't say, like, stop or anything.
Seriously, she keeps doing it and doing it. We've seen from the beginning, copying, and she keeps doing it. And quite honestly, before I carry on, I think that from what I've seen so far, I was kind of able to figure out the instances when Amber is genuine and when she's acting. And a lot of people on TikTok, and not only on TikTok, on Facebook as well, are saying that Amber should get an Oscar for her acting on the stand. But I say, guys, honestly, that she shouldn't, because she's really a bad actor on the stand. She's really a bad actress on the stand, isn't she? If she would act properly, then surely we would believe that she's being genuine, but she's not, and you can clearly tell. And she is being genuine when she talks about her relationship with Johnny at the beginning. I've noticed that she's being genuine when she talks about the beginning, how they fell in love, how much in love she was, how great the relationship was, how nice Johnny treated her. And also she is being genuine when Dr. Hughes talks about her childhood trauma. She's being quite genuine, in my opinion. I don't know if you've seen, well, probably you've seen now from the clips, but do let me know, please, guys, what do you think in the comment section down below. Not only she's doing what she's doing on the stand, copying what Dr. Hughes says about victims of DV, but she's also copying what Johnny did during their relationship. Yes, guys, she's copying what he did during their relationship, and she tries to make it her own. She now is saying that she tried to leave situations when in arguments or in fights with Johnny, and we know already that Johnny testified, and his sister testified as well on the stand, saying that Johnny, he would usually leave a situation like this because this is how he deals with situations. He just wants to leave the argument because he can't deal with it. Now Amber is saying that she did the same, that she did that. She did it, of course, she did. And Amber Heard is also mentioning an instance where Johnny was drinking and he tried to set a painting on fire with a lighter, but he was unsuccessful because he was drinking. Now, if we are to take this at face value, I don't know, we know that Johnny Depp smokes as well, so I'm curious to know, did he smoke on that particular occasion? Because if he was able to light the cigarette using a lighter, then surely he would be able to light a painting using the same lighter. I mean, I don't know if using a lighter has anything to do with the drinking. I don't know. Apparently that was a painting from Amber Heard's previous partner, her wife, her previous wife. And Johnny Depp all of a sudden had an issue with it, and he took the painting off the wall and he threw it on the floor. But then Amber changed her story, saying that he asked her to remove the painting off the wall, and you know, this kind of things. And from what I have also seen from Amber so far, I think that either that she has a script in her head of what she needs to say, or she is just going along with the story as she goes, creating it on the spot. She is really struggling to explain things, and again we are seeing the same behavior of her being arrogant, of her being because she is always looking at Johnny, at his reaction to what she says, whereas throughout the whole of her being on the stand, Johnny couldn't even look at her in the eyes. He was always with his head down. And we already know that victims of DV, they don't look their partners in the eye, because they just don't, because they feel intimidated, because they feel shame, they feel embarrassed, and they want to avoid eye contact because they don't want to see. So Amber looking at Johnny and Johnny not looking at Amber, quite honestly shows to me that he is the victim and not her. And her looking at him, again, quite honestly shows to me that she's trying to use the control of the eye contact, and she's trying to be in control, and she's trying to show him that, look at me, I'm here on the stand and people believe me. But from her body language, I'm no expert here, people I don't think believe her. And also when she explains certain situations, the ones which are true, she explains them quite well, and then the ones which are lies, she's not really explaining them, is she? She keeps on going and going and going, but at the end of it, you kind of don't get anything from it, if you know what I mean. It's either that she has this story built up in her head of what to say, or but I'm thinking that she's just going along with the story as she goes on the stand, following the questions. You can see that there are so many pauses where she's trying to think of what to say, and she takes the sips of drink, trying to think of what she say, looking in the room around her to see how everybody reacts, if she's being believable, looking at the jury, making all these faces of crying, but no tears, no red eyes, no wiping tears, no nose, sniffing when you cry. You kind of, you can tell that you cry, obviously, but she's crying with her bottom part of her lips, but she's not crying with her eyes, she's not crying with her behavior. It's clearly, in my eyes, an act, but a horrible act at that, really. And she's also another fun thing, well, not fun, another thing that she's trying to do, she's trying to paint Johnny as an animal, and to draw a conclusion from this, because Johnny is an animal, then of course he is abusive towards Amber, right? Because if you are an animal abuser, you are a human abuser as well, right? Because you are violent, so you are prone to violence. And what she tried to point out here was an instance where she was with Johnny in the car and one of the dogs, but she can't remember if it was her dog or his dog, which is, again, yeah, never mind. And she says that all of a sudden Johnny Depp opened the window whilst they were driving with so many people in the car, so there were other witnesses around, but funny enough nobody spoke about it, only she does. And he starts howling like an animal. Yes, she said that Johnny starts howling like an animal, and then he takes the dog and he puts the dog on the window, and Amber got very panicked and very stressed out, because she said that the first thing that came to her mind was, what if he's going to drop the dog, what's going to happen to the dog, and so on and so forth. So she's dramatizing this whole thing. It feels like you are watching a movie, and a bad one at that. And now, with this story, with Johnny and the dog in the car, a lot of people actually picked up on this, and I'm going to refer to TikTok, because there is I'm sure there is all over social media an army of fans of Johnny Depp, but on TikTok I found this. The army of fans of Johnny Depp's in the millions. They are really trying to be detectives and kind of, helping out. And actually there is a TikTok video showing that Amber was the one holding the dog out the window. And yes, she was the one who held the dog out the window, and she wasn't distressed, and the dog wasn't distressed, everybody had a good time, and so on and so forth. And this is kind of like twisting the story to fit her narrative, which again brings me back to either bipolar disorder or BPD, and it kind of strengthens the diagnosis from Dr. Curry that she indeed suffers with BPD. I think that she does. I mean, all of these things that she's doing, it's just unbelievable. And again, with the power of TikTok, a lot of fans are actually pointing out that stories Amber tells are taken from Gone Girl. Like, Gone Girl is the inspiration behind Amber Heard's stories. So I don't think I've ever seen Gone Girl myself, so I really don't know what to say about this. But if you guys have seen Gone Girl and we are following the trial, please do let me know what your decision is. Is she getting inspired by events in Gone Girl when she starts coming up with these weird stories? And this is the beginning of it only, of the, I think I'm gonna call it a circus. And it will be very interesting to see what happens next. Honestly, it's laughable to say the least. And Amber Heard's lawyers are quite honestly just embarrassing themselves, I think, at this point. And I think that Dr. Hughes as well, her career will be affected by this. I've read an article today on saying about her IMDb account that he was inundated by Johnny Depp fans only with negative reviews. So I think that Dr. Hughes will also be affected by this. Going back to the to Amber Heard's lawyers and how they are embarrassing themselves, I'm not sure if you've seen the clip I posted on YouTube, the short I posted. Rottenborn, I think he was, at one point he objected to his own question, as I mentioned previously.
You didn't know what could cause damage to Mr. Depp's hand while you were there on March 8th, correct?
Dr. Kipper had told me he'd sustained an injury on one of his fingers.
Objection, hearsay.
But you asked the question.
Okay.
Then we also have the penis exposure, which I think was quite embarrassing, and in my honest opinion, I think it was unnecessary, yet they went with that because, you know, why not?
And then you went in the house and saw Mr. Depp in the foyer, correct?
Yes, correct.
And Mr. Depp was trying to urinate in the foyer, wasn't he?
No.
Mr. Depp had his penis out of his pants, didn't he?
I think I would remember
Relevance.
seeing Mr. Depp's penis.
I'll allow it. Next question.
And you were trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
Correct, I was trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house, yes.
And Mr. Depp was refusing to leave the house, was he not?
Not so much refused, he just wanted 2 minutes to see his piece.
You took Mr. Depp's arm to try to move him out, but he broke away, isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, so he was strong enough to break away from your grip, correct?
No.
So you had his arm and he broke away, though, correct?
No.
Isn't that what you just said?
I don't know where that came from, but I don't think he was professional. I think that they could have avoided bringing that up, because what was the point of doing that when the bodyguard, you know, said that it wasn't true? What was the point of them bringing that out? It just doesn't make any sense. For me, I think that they embarrass themselves, and they are not acting only childish, but also they are acting like unprofessionals, like someone who is just new in this career, honestly. And also we've had from Berhoft, the lawyer, I think, the lady lawyer of Amber Heard, Ellen Berhoft, I think her name is. She was constantly at one point referring to Dr. Hughes as Dr. Curry. Now you can imagine how embarrassing that is. At one point Dr. Hughes was on the stand and she was visibly offended and fed up with being called Dr. Curry. And the lawyer keeps on excusing herself by saying that Dr. Curry is there in the courtroom, and you know, it's kind of like, oh, she was on the stand, so she confuses the names and so on and so forth. Again, another thing which...
Dr. Curry, in answering that question, were you consulting anything?
Dr. Hughes.
Dr. Hughes, I'm so sorry. Dr. Hughes, were you consulting anything? Dr. Curry's here, I guess, as well. That's what confusing myself.
I'm consulting my cheat sheet of the dates that I saw Ms. Heard so that I could accurately report to the court.
Dr. Curry, if you, I mean, Dr. Hughes, I don't know why I keep doing that. My apologies. Dr. Hughes, I think it's the confusion of having her in the courtroom. Dr. Hughes,
God, I did not expect, well, you should be able to expect that, I think, honestly. Yeah, because at this point, I think that we are already used to expecting all these ridiculous things being said and all these ridiculous things being done. I have to tell you guys, TikTok, for example, is full of memes about Amber Heard's lawyers. There's barely any memes making fun of Johnny Depp's lawyers. So you can kind of see the public's perception of the teams. Yeah, that's kind of what's happening right now. The last thing that I'm gonna touch on very quickly is just what else Amber said yesterday in her testimony on the stand, and Dr. Hughes also pointed this out, the cavity search, if you haven't heard of this. So the cavity search, guys, Jesus Christ, I can't even believe I'm saying this, like seriously. So Amber Heard is saying, and Dr. Hughes was saying as well, so Amber Heard and Johnny Depp with a couple of friends, they went to this trailer park to spend a few nights, a few days, have fun, you know, consume some mushrooms, do some drugs and whatever. And there was a point where Johnny apparently got jealous of another woman who was leaning on Amber Heard, accusing Amber that she has something going on with that woman. Then they go back in their trailer, Amber and Johnny. Then he starts frantically smashing things about, throwing everything around, flipping table, whatever, asking her where did she hide it. Then she went to the bathroom, then she came out of the bathroom. He then started ripping her clothes off, and he was constantly asking her, where are you hiding it? And then he ripped her underwear, and then he proceeded to penetrate her with his fingers looking for the drugs. Yes, so he performed a cavity search with his fingers up her vagina and circled them around to look for the drugs, which apparently she's hidden from him, according to what she says. And this is the same thing that she told Dr. Hughes. It's not only embarrassing for me to talk about it and to explain it, but it's also laughable, because this kind of stories you see in movies, honestly, you see in stories which are not real. Does this really happen in real life? I don't know, but I'm just, every single day of me watching this trial, I am just left gobsmacked at whatever is being said and shown and everything else. And honestly, I'm quite happy that I have 4 days of a break from this, because the trial goes from Monday to Thursday, then Friday, Saturday and Sunday is a day off, so it's not 4 days, it's 3 days really. Friday, Saturday, yes. At least we have 3 days off from this entire circus, movie set, live trial being broadcasted all over the world. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please let me know what do you think about everything in the comment section down below. Also, I do have a Patreon account if you are interested. The link is on your screen. It will also be in the description down below. We talk over there about 18+ stuff, which obviously for obvious reasons we can't talk about on YouTube. There will be also crime scene photos and all kinds of goodies. There are 3 tiers over there, so if you want to check it out, you can do so. And also I have a playlist dedicated to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. The link for it is in the description down below as well. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing by hitting the subscribe button. Also, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me, and you support the channel by doing this, as the YouTube algorithm will push the video more on the platform and more people will get to see it. And yes, you will probably be seeing some more videos on Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial on my channel, perhaps some shorts or some clips that I upload separately on the channel, so you can have a look at those as well. But all of the clips and videos that I have around Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial will also be in the playlist, so make sure that you save that playlist and you can catch up on all the coverage I did so far on the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Please take care, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!